Hi, this is Chevy here with MNMMANEWS.com, and I am with the Jacob Christmas Volkmann. Jacob, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. First place I want to start is you're a Minnesota guy. You're homegrown here in this state. You started your career as a wrestler, and from there you transitioned into MMA. You wrestled at the U of M. What was it that actually became your motivation to take you from being a wrestler into being an actual mixed martial artist?
Well, at first I didn't know what MMA was. So when I started from not knowing what fighting was. Sean Shirk came to the U of M back 2007 and he did a clinic. He showed us some submission moves, him and Greg Nelson. And then he asked me to help him train for Hermes Franca fight. So I came over here, I was training with him, kind of fell in love with the grappling and the fighting part of MMA. Okay,
so I mean, you're basically relatively new to MMA then. A lot of guys, they start in jiu-jitsu, at a pretty early age. You actually, considering that, you actually got started pretty late then, right?
Yeah, I started doing jiu-jitsu about four years ago. I've been wrestling for 26 years though, so there's not much difference between wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's pretty easy to transition.
Yeah, you've definitely made the transition very easy. At the U of M, you were an amazing wrestler, 3-time NCAA All-American. You were also a conference champion as well. Then you transitioned into jiu-jitsu. How important do you think the wrestling background is for professional mixed martial artists nowadays, though?
I think it's key because you learn how to push yourself. You learn how to go beyond when people quit. You can push past that. So that's something you don't get in pretty much any other sport.
Yeah, you end up really, you get a really deep gas tank. You learn how to condition and
learn how to diet.
Learn how to
diet. Is about the same with MMA and wrestling.
Yeah, it is huge. Making weight for wrestling is a lot like making weight for MMA. Now, you started your career as a fighter. You fought relatively, pretty much local here in Minnesota. There was nobody out there that could touch you. There was really no competition for you. You were able to run through opponents pretty easily in your early career. Your first big fight was Bellator. You fought against Nabian, Canavision. Thank you. Tough, Ultimate Fighter veteran.
Well, he wasn't very tough.
But he was the Ultimate Fighter reality veteran. You were able to beat him with a Bravo choke, I believe, correct?
I think so. I'm not really sure. It wasn't. I don't remember it. The one that I think that was really the hardest, I think, was Bobby Volker. The one before him, I fought at. I don't remember the event. It was in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska. He's fighting for Strikeforce now, but he was probably my toughest one until the UFC.
And then when you came into the UFC, you had a tough start.
Yeah.
Two losses for your first two fights. The second one being on very short notice against an extremely tough opponent, Martin Kampmann. Now you've got 3 wins in a row in the UFC. What for you was the biggest difference between going from fighting the local competition, and fighting some of those guys to fighting the guys in the UFC? How big is that step up?
Well, it's kind of like going from high school to college wrestling. You do two days. Because if you only do one a day, you're not getting enough workout, and you really got to have your dieting down. Those guys were coming in from 210 down to 170 when I first got at the UFC. Martin Kampmann, Paul Tiago, so they're pretty big. They're 6'1", I think Kampmann was, and he was cut pretty good.
So it's got to be kind of difficult, you being a bigger guy to going into a promotion where everybody's a big guy at that weight.
Everyone's a big guy. They're cutting a lot of weight. They're strong. It's day before weigh-in, so some guys are cutting 40 pounds. It's pretty easy.
That is absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's got to be tough to jump up in competition like that. Now you train with one of the best teams, not just in Minnesota but in the country. You're with the Academy, the Minnesota Martial Arts Academy. Greg Nelson, who is considered one of the best trainers in the world. You also train with guys like Nick the Goat Thompson, Nick Lentz. There's some pretty amazing people that train over here. Paul Bradley,
Sean Shirk,
right behind you. Sean Shirk. You've also got Paul Bradley's another big 170. Yeah. Brock Larson, who's another huge 170. What's it like being able to train with those guys and being able to work with guys who have a lot of experience in the bigger promotions?
I think it was key because it helped me understand what I needed to do, because I had to compete with those guys because that's what it was like in the UFC. So I think it was pretty much key for me to start winning in the UFC, to start training with those guys.
And so now you've got another fight coming up. It's going to be on August 14th, I believe.
August 14th, Milwaukee against Danny Castillo.
What do you know about Danny Castillo?
He's a wrestler. He fights like Faber, Uriah Faber. He throws a lot of haymakers and then he shoots, but his haymakers land. He knocks some guys out. They're very powerful punches, but they're not too accurate. So my goal is to punch straight and stay away from his haymakers. And if I see a shot, I'm going to take it.
What part of your game? I mean, obviously you've been wrestling for 26 years. You train with some great jiu-jitsu guys. What part of your game have you had to work on the most since you got into the UFC?
Work on the most is obviously Muay Thai, kickboxing. I never kicked people before, and that was hard to get used to that. And then my boxing wasn't the greatest. I boxed in high school for 3 years, but it wasn't near the same as these guys here.
So that's what
boxing, Muay Thai. That's what I need to work on the most.
And you feel like it's getting up to speed? You feel like you're pretty comfortable with it now? Are you ready to throw the hands?
Yeah, a little bit. Every day is you learn something new every day.
Well, that's good. If you're not learning anything, then you can pretty much just hang up the gloves at that point. My last question for you is, you train with some pretty interesting characters over here. Everybody's pretty funny. Good group of guys. You have some very interesting nicknames. You've got Nick Lenz, who's the Carney. You yourself you're Jacob Christmas Volkmann.
Yeah.
And
someone's trying to change it over to the Wolfman.
The Wolfman.
Because I'm furry.
The Wolfman's a pretty good nickname. I don't think anybody else has that. How did you end up with Christmas?
I got my nickname from, I used to have a bowl haircut. Like, ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber? Lloyd Christmas. He has a bowl haircut. And then Nick Thompson and Brock Lesnar were making fun of me one day because of my bowl haircut and said I looked like Christmas. So Nick Thompson put it on Sure Dog, and then that's it. Yeah,
once Nick the Goat puts something on Sure Dog, it's going to blow up from there. So now that you're in the UFC, you've got 3 wins in a row. You've got another big fight coming up. What is your ultimate goal right now within the next couple of years here?
Well, my next goal, I gotta finish. So I got a short goal. Short goal is to finish this match. I want to finish him with a sub or a knockout or a TKO. Overall, the obvious goal, any guy that's in the UFC has the goal to be a belt, to be the champion, and that's my goal too.
Do you think you're about ready for that point?
We'll see. I got to start doing more stand-up. Be a little more confident in my feet than I will be.
Yeah. 3 big wins in a row by decision. It's going to keep you, in work in the UFC. Of course, you're not going to get cut when you're winning. Big fight coming up. Anything else that you want to say to any of the young guys who are just starting out as fighters, who look up to guys like you, who want to get to your point?
Well, it's always going to be tough when you first go to a good gym when guys push you. You're gonna want to quit because they're subbing you every 5 minutes. You get subbed like 3 times. You just got to stick with it. Eventually, you're gonna come through. Kind of like Zach, when Zach Jusla when he first got here, he was getting subbed pretty easily, and now I can't sub that guy. He's pretty good.
So just stick with it, work hard.
Stick with it, work hard, suck it up, pretty much.
Well, yeah, I imagine that's got to be tough with a group of guys like this, but if you can roll with these guys, you could probably roll with pretty much anybody anywhere.
That's true.
Well, hey, Jacob, thank you so much for being with me. The last thing is, I always thought this was interesting. You graduated from the U of M. You're actually a chiropractor.
Yep.
And so what's that like for a guy who's known for twisting people into pretzels to also be straightening out people's backs? I mean, did you get into the business just so you could, break people and then fix them again? Or
no, I was actually, I started being a chiropractor. I had a dream to be a chiropractor when I was young because I used to go to one all the time. And the guy fixed me up pretty darn good. I grew up on a pig farm. So I was going through a lot of work, and my body took a toll, and he fixed me up good. So I had a dream to be a chiropractor, and that's why I do that.
And there
it doesn't help you with fighting. You don't find easy trigger points.
So you're not able to just touch somebody in one spot on their back and they, go completely limp or anything?
No.
So there's no Vulcan neck pinch?
No.
If there was, you could call it the Volkmann neck pinch. That would be pretty slick, though. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, Jacob Volkmann of the Minnesota Martial Arts Academy, or the Academy. Here with us today, I'm Chevy, MMANews.com, MinnesotaMMANews.com. Check it out. Anything you want to know for local and national news, it's right there. Thank you so much for being with us. I know you're a busy guy, so we'll get out of your hair. We'll see you soon.